Facebook Facebook hides what information it sells about you, even from Apple. Consumers are turning away from Apple. Microsoft browsers are being hampered with irony, and Apple and Amazon, let Alexis hear the music
Alexa.
all tonight on the Mac to the Future. Quiet, you on the Mac to the Future live cast. And here we are once again on the Mac to the Future livecast. I am your host, Guy Searle, and tonight I have two, not one, but two co-hosts to help me get through the madness. And let's see what happens when I bring up the first one. What happens there? It's Mr. Sklar. How are you, Mr. Sklar?
Call me Alexis.
Call you
I'm
Alexis?
Yeah, it's Alexa, dude. Alexa.
What did I say?
Alexis.
Okay. Well, you
Which
know,
is my neighbor's daughter.
I
So,
prefer my digital assistants to be men. And we also have Mr. David Ginsburg. How are you today, David? Yeah, I see
Yes,
you.
it's Alexis. No, it's not Alexa. It is Alexa. Yeah, I'm doing great. How you doing? Mike?
Okay. I'm doing all right.
Okay.
And it's all three of us. So
Look, she
so
went off
far-
there behind me. See, you shouldn't have said that.
so far everything is going well. Yeah. What do you think? What do you guys think so far of the show? It's great, isn't it?
It's only been 20 seconds, but sure.
I know. You know,
It's
sometimes
awesome.
I think you should just stop right there, before anything goes wrong. But we're not going to. We are going to continue on. Anything? You guys have anything new going on that you want to talk about before we get into the main stories? I want to show you guys something cool.
I'm going
guys
on
ready?
a spinning
Podcast
spree.
keeps
Yeah, go ahead.
going strong.
Okay. Well, as you guys know, a couple weekends ago I went to Ohio and I went to the Audio
Yeah. I
Technica
don't know about that.
Audio Technica warehouse sale, and one of the things I bought was this. Whoops, wrong way.
Oh,
Was
What is
this?
it?
This
What is
this is the ATM 510. This is like Audio Technica's version
Sure.
of the Shure 58. And I actually have it. Hold on a second. I have it connected.
Ooh,
Oh,
I want
that's
I
better.
want that mic.
Now I can
Isn't
hear
it? Isn't this a nice mic?
Yeah.
And it's I mean I'm really kind of, and the other thing is, before you get too excited, Dave, you see what
you. What
this
do you can
is?
do with it?
Yeah, I was trying to use those mine the other day. I want to trade them in and get into that.
This is the new Simply Sound SS1. It's much smaller, so I have that connected there at the end of it. What its long term
I have water.
use? Warren has water.
I
I'm
do
gonna
too.
switch back to my other mic. Hold on.
I got it from Ohio,
Ohio water.
from the Ars Technica warehouse sale.
Well, you
I
know
went to Ohio, all
the
I got is this bottle of water.
is that bottle of water. The weird thing, I stay at my buddy Dave's house when I go to Ohio,
And not me.
and I cannot drink the water at his house.
Why?
It's well water.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's like ugh. Yeah,
Think of Macstock out in that area. My lake house, well water. I can't even take a shower in it. I can't stand.
Oh,
it.
I can shower. I don't really
I
care
smell like
about
metal.
We,
Metal man. Rock and roll. All right, I'm gonna stop doing
Last week our water was not drinkable. We don't have well water. We have township water, and the amount of turbidity, which is a word I learned last week, was in our water system. So the whole town. So there's a Facebook page of the town that we're in, and people just complain. It went on for 3 days. We weren't allowed to drink water.
Right.
We had to boil water, things like that. people complaining and everything like that.
Mm.
So
Good
now
Lord.
now that it's over. The running joke is turbidity. If anything's wrong, it's turbidity.
Turbidity.
Yeah,
I don't even know
look
what
it
that
up.
word means. What does that word
Now
mean?
I didn't either 2 weeks ago, but now I do. It's the amount of it's cloudiness in the water, but there was nothing wrong with the water, but there could have been whatever was happening. There could be a problem with the water, whereas
Otherwise,
before,
but it just doesn't look like it's good to drink
well, right, well
because of
that, but
its
there's also
turbidity.
they're saying that
Use
they're
it in a
saying that
sentence.
it was perfectly fine, but the safeguards in place to protect it was not fine. It was
Yeah,
weird.
my father, when I was growing up, my father actually worked at a he worked at as he was an engineer at a wastewater treatment plant in Fort Lauderdale. And the funny thing, they built this wastewater treatment plant in this area where there were no homes, there was nothing around there. And Florida being Florida, if there is a spare bit of land, they put houses on it eventually, and it doesn't matter what's around it. It's like, oh, look at that, there's some land, let's put some houses down. So they built all these houses around this sewage plant, and then they put in an 18-hole golf course around the sewage plant for the houses
Of course.
that they just put in. And then after that was all done, they complained about the smell of the sewage plant. It's like, did you really think that building homes next to a sewage plant meant that on occasion there wouldn't be a sewage smell because
Or
it's a
alligator.
sewage plant? So
There could have been
I think
alligators.
after no. My father retired, and I think it was like 5 to 10 years after he retired, they closed the sewage plant and boarded it all up and filled it in and all the rest of that, so that the homes and the golf course that they built after they put in the sewage plant would no longer be affected. Yeah, so
That's awesome.
there was that.
That stinks. Get it? It stinks.
Yeah, that joke was full of turbidity.
There was some turbidity in that joke.
I'm gonna use that. That's like my new favorite word is turbidity. It's like, there's this steak.
very
This
turbidity.
steak that you just served me. It seems turbidish. Can you do something about that?
Turbid.
Bish?
It's turbid.
Yeah,
there's
bish.
no- yeah.
It's
So when we walk-
it's like a pronoun, which of course is a noun that has lost its amateur status.
when we walk around town, that's all we say to each other. My steak is turbid.
As compared to a turban, which you wear on your head.
No,
right.
a steak. Yes.
So, speaking
welcome
of
to-
things that stink.
Yes.
Apple claims to be unaware of Facebook's data grab from iOS users. This is, and I should have been ready, but I wasn't. This is a story from Apple Insider. You can see the link down there at the bottom of the page. Apple CEO Tim Cook claimed that they were unaware of the data being used by Facebook, suggesting that the social media giant enabled Apple devices to surreptitiously, which is almost sounds as good as turbish,
Turbish.
collect information about users without their or apparently Apple's knowledge. A New York Times report details the special data sharing relationship Facebook had with many tech companies, including Microsoft, Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon. The example given is that Facebook revealed the names of virtually all user friends to Microsoft Bing's search engine without their consent, while Netflix and Spotify were granted access to private messages. Through their friends, users' names and contact information were provided to Amazon as Yahoo was able to view their posts, the report said. Apple's relationship with Facebook allowed users to post photos to Facebook without actually opening the application. Apple ended that relationship in September. The things mentioned, this is a quote from Tim Cook, the things mentioned in the Times article about relationship statuses and all these kinds of stuff. This is so foreign to us and not data that we have ever received at all or requested. zero, zilch, nada, said Cook at the time. So, is anyone like surprised that Facebook continues to try to find ways to, they get their hands slapped for using users' data to sell to people, and they say, "Oh, don't worry, we will never, ever do that again." That doesn't mean they won't do this or this other thing, but that thing that they got caught at, they won't do again. But they seem to continuously find new ways to kind of screw over the users of the service. And, we're all, the irony of this, of course, is that we are currently on Facebook Live in the Mac to the Future Facebook group. The difference, I think, between a lot of the people that belong to the Mac to the Future group on Facebook are fully aware of how Facebook is using any and all information that they're receiving from each one of their users and how they're selling it, because this is a free service. It does not cost any of us any money other than hardware for cameras and microphones and going to Ohio to get more cameras and microphones. But this is how Facebook makes their money. This is how Google makes their money. It's all based on gathering information about the people that use these services and selling them to companies so that they can advertise to us. Is anyone surprised by this?
Nope.
No,
So
not at all.
So the only thing that keeps going through my head is 30 years we had the idea to connect all the computers in the world together. 10 years ago, we had the idea to make social networks and connect all people together. Now we're like, damn, now we all know what each other's doing. It is what it is. I mean, we're never going to stop every company from leaking or sharing stuff. It's going to happen. It's going to happen at Apple one day.
Not in this day and age.
Yeah, it's just going to happen. I mean, Apple, is not selling a service. Why? Because they sell their service. You pay for it. So
you're paying for the hardware, you're paying for the software, you're paying for the services that Apple provides.
You pay for every service that we get.
Right.
And Google gives you free storage. Apple doesn't. Facebook gives you free
ways
sites,
to connect to all of your friends
but
and people
Apple
that
Music,
you haven't seen for 30
Apple
years.
Music isn't free. iTunes isn't free.
iTunes, the program is free.
Right, but the content.
But most of the content on iTunes is not free.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what can be done? I mean, what can anyone do to Facebook to prevent them from doing this?
If they care, the question comes back is, how much do you care? So Facebook leaked what? And it's not even from what I understand, they leaked names. It was
it was access to private messages.
Oh, messages, yeah. I mean, they were
That's
saying some companies were deleting the messages.
Of everything that we use Google and Facebook for, as far as my photos, fine. As far as the crap that I post on my timeline, I understand. Most of the stuff that I'm doing on Facebook, I get that they're going to turn around and try to find some way to monetize it.
I mean, millions and millions of messages are coming through a day on Facebook, and they're sharing. What are they sharing? What are they?
That's not the point, though, Warren. The point is you've got all of these. I mean, and there are people that use these kinds of services for private messages, and the fact that now, and this hasn't really gotten too far out there. This has pretty much been restricted to the tech press. I haven't heard anything about this on CNN or Fox or MSNBC or any of the big networks that Facebook is actually taking people's private messages and making them available to advertisers that use their services. And all the public stuff, I get Facebook can use that to their heart's content. I understand that going in. But when we're talking about instant messages, private messages, that disturbs me. That really bothers me. It's not a question of
Doesn't
no,
Gmail do the same thing with their mail? I mean,
Not
that's what they did. Maybe they did.
um,
Supposedly they were scanning emails for keywords
ads.
and
Yeah, I think
targeting
they,
ads.
they
based on
said
that.
they stopped doing that. So, no, I
Right,
mean, I
but
agree
they
with
were.
you. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons I don't use Facebook Messenger much, if at all. It's just I just don't trust it. I mean, it's why they're doing that is beyond me. You know, Facebook denies that it's happening, but who do you believe anymore? I mean,
well,
Facebook
certainly not Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah,
I don't. I'm not saying it's a good thing either. I'm just saying that it's so much data is going across the internet, and and the only way they're keeping these sites up and running is by selling our data, and that's the model that we're in. So, and
Well, it's the
we're not
model we're in
surprised-
because no one is willing to pay for these services.
well,
and
yeah.
the paywall.
You know, there's been several services that have tried to institute
yeah.
a paywall where basically
Hmm.
users just pay some nominal fee, and honestly, if there was a site out there like Facebook that had the same kind of reach as Facebook and charged $2 to $5 a month, I would be very tempted to sign up for it. The problem is not many other people would. It would never get the
Well,
kind of
'cause
reach
people are cheap
that
asses and
Facebook
people don't
has
wanna
because
do it.
people are cheap asses. They're not going to pay for privacy. But that's part of the reason why Apple's stuff is so expensive. Is that so far they have kept their word as far as privacy goes for the most part.
The bottom line of anybody who's a user of Facebook, you cannot expect privacy. I mean, plain and simple. Don't put anything out there you don't want to know about. Don't.
I think that's true for the use
I mean-
of the internet. Almost. I mean, the internet
things
in
have changed
itself
in 10
is,
years. I mean, the internet has changed tremendously. I mean,
Right.
you can't expect privacy anymore.
Am I going to fully trust that anything I do on the internet is not going to be shared or seen? No,
Right.
there's nothing.
Don't share anything you don't want shared.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, well, is that the final word on that?
again, nobody's going to leave. I mean, all the people that said they were going to leave Facebook last time,
They either haven't or
or
I
whatever.
mean, I saw there was the Amy Schumer did the boycott of Facebook. I mean,
Oh, who cares
it's
about
yeah,
her?
but now
what's
she's
the
probably
point?
back on.
Of course she
Who
is.
cares?
Because let's face it, there's a ton of people looking at things. All of us are the three of us are involved in some way or another as far as wanting to get our content out there. You can't ignore Facebook. There's just too many eyeballs out there watching that you can't resist it anymore. It's at that point.
Well,
Twitter, Twitter has its problems. They all
Sure.
have problems. You know, Twitter
No,
has its slack as it.
the
I mean,
thing.
Instagram's owned by Facebook, and everybody thinks they're retreating to Instagram. You're dealing with the same thing with
It's the same thing,
Instagram
yeah.
as you are with Facebook.
We could go to
Facebook
Google
owns them.
Plus, but we can't.
You know what? And you know what I did? I mean, Google Plus is going to go away sooner than later.
Yeah.
I deleted my account. I'm no longer on Google Plus.
Well, I
because
mean,
people-
we still
not
have
that anybody's on there anyway, but
we still have
Yeah.
the My Mac podcast Google Plus page. I haven't been to it in a year, maybe more,
Right. I looked
because
at
it
it,
was
all the content
it was a
is stale.
freaking ghost town.
I went to
I have
my Google Plus page and said, "Yay, my son was born. He's 15 now."
Yeah. Oh, I get jokes.
I deleted
Okay.
it. It's gone.
That's fine.
But at the same time, as far as Facebook goes, I think that Zuckerberg and company need to remember that once upon a time there was AOL, which was the service that everybody
Oh, yeah.
had to be on, and after that there was MySpace, and now there's Facebook, and eventually someone is going to come up with a service or a user interface that is more compelling to, and it's mostly the younger generation that's going to determine this. It's not going to be people like us, you know. I mean, well, at least
Well,
people like me.
AOL was AOL was a paywall, and there was no advertising, if you remember.
Well, originally,
in the
yeah.
beginning. Yeah, we were all paying $10.95 a month.
Yeah.
If you remember that. Yeah, with this disc. And
I always heard, "Welcome, you've got
you're
mail."
welcome.
You've got mail.
After the
All right. All right.
Welcome.
56K modem.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to the next story.
All right.
The next
Cool.
story, if I can get it to come up, there we go. Consumers are upset with Apple, and fewer than ever will upgrade in Korea. All right, this is a story from the KoreaTimes.co.kr. Writing for the Korea Times, Jun Ji-hee says that an increasing number of Korean consumers are turning their backs on Apple based on the notion that iPhones offer a limited scope of functions in addition to the inconvenience of the iOS operating system, while Apple continues to maintain its high price policy. You know, if this had come from any other source other than the Korea Times, I would probably be really, really upset about this. But, you know, in essence, here are the alleged complaints: that there's no Apple Pay yet. And unsurprisingly, Samsung Pay is widely used. Well, there's no Apple Pay yet because none of the Korean banks have agreed to join up using the Apple Pay service. Higher price than a Samsung Galaxy 9 with the same capacity, because that's all that matters with a smartphone is how many GBs that it has. What is that background noise? You guys hear that?
Yes.
I'm hearing some background noise. I don't know where that's coming from. That's coming from... I think that's coming from you, Warren.
Is it a fan? You got a fan going?
It almost sounds like running water.
Are
you drowning?
I'm encoding a video, so that might be it. It's
Well,
not a
okay.
fan.
So, no voice call recording feature, even though that's now available in iOS 12. And this one cracks me up. Having to go to third-party repair shops, as Apple is just too busy. Retailers, and this was a story from a couple of months ago. Retailers are upset in Korea because they have to pay full price for showroom demo units, which are actually fully functioning iPhones. So they basically want Apple to give them free phones that they can use on the show floor. So have
It's
you
like
guys...
Cheap asses.
Yeah. So was there anything in here? I don't know if you guys have read this story, but was there anything of all the things that I just talked about that made any sense at all?
None.
As far as, you know, oh, and in the story it mentioned that 22% of people favored buying an iPhone, but after these revelations, that was down to 17% without giving any other context. So, you know, I didn't really quite understand what that meant. But
I don't even understand half the story. I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Well, it's basically
They're mad that
it's paid advertisement for Samsung as compared to an iPhone.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Samsung is
I
Samsung
mean,
in Korea, so
Yeah.
is Samsung giving away like the phones to like shops or like
I
for
have
dummy units?
I have no idea. If they're talking about these little plastic things that don't really have any guts,
The dummy
but
units,
you can
yeah.
sit there and go, well, this is what it looks like. Does that one work? No, but this is what it looks like. You know, who cares? You know, you can find many sources, many ways to see how an iPhone works or an Android phone works, depending on whose model it is that you're going to buy, whether it's Samsung or Huawei or Sony or God only knows who else that's making Android phones, which is like everybody. So, you know, the fact that Apple isn't willing to just hand over a bunch of phones to third-party retailers so that they can show them on the show floor, and then, of course, eventually sell them as new phones or used phones or however it is they're going to do it. I don't think that's a really big surprise. Apple's never done that for anybody.
Well, Apple likes to demo. I mean, in the stores, they like to demo real phones.
Right,
I mean,
but that's in their stores,
attractive.
and they've paid for those phones.
Right.
Apple
Even
has to
third-
pay for their own phones.
Yeah, but third-party resellers do the same thing. Best Buy, you walk into a Best Buy and they have real working phones.
Yeah.
Third-party shops. have
Where
real
did
working
those phones come from? Did they have to pay for them,
Yeah, they do.
or were they given to them?
Yeah.
No,
they pay for
they
them.
pay for them.
It's part of their stock.
They'll pay for them. And not only do they pay for them, they're I don't want to say non-working units, but they're locked down. They got
Yeah.
they got Apple software. So when I worked at the third-party Apple store, with our computers and our iPads, because third parties don't sell phones, or not all of them do. We didn't. There's demo software that's running on this stuff. So it's kind of locked down. That's why if you go to Craigslist or eBay once in a while, you'll say selling demo iPhone. It doesn't do anything. It's pretty much locked down.
Yeah.
But it's still a real phone, so people are still paying for that actual thing.
Sure.
I guess they can make a plastic model if they want. 3D print something out. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, all that does is just say, well, this is what the phone looks like. It's a freaking flat slab with a screen on one side. And it doesn't matter who makes it. Doesn't matter what operating system it has. That's what they all look like now.
Doesn't sell you the phone. I mean,
No.
I worked in retail for years. I hated having those fake units that were out.
And they usually
you can't.
had like a little printed screen on them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Where it was like, well, this is what it looks like when the screen is on. Oh, is that the real screen? No, that's just a sticker that we put on there.
I think the Apple Store actually kind of got retail into the method of putting actual products out on display for people to touch and use. Because I kind of remember before that it was not really like that. You can, with computers and electronics, if you go to like Circuit City, they didn't have things out like that you could really,
That's a blast from the
Play
past.
with-
Circuit City.
CompUSA or things like that. It was sort of limited to what,
Wasn't
Like,
there a
you
place
could
called
walk into a-
Computer City?
Yes, there
CompUSA.
was. No, there was a Computer City. It was owned by I think it was owned by Tandy.
Maybe. But,
Oh,
We had
that's
the-
right. It was an offshoot of Radio Shack.
Right.
but CompUSA was a big one that was around. So we all
I
had
worked at Service
CompUSAs.
Merchandise. If you remember that store.
I do
Oh yeah,
remember
yeah,
that.
yeah. Where you would basically go to the counter with a stock number, and they would go and get
Yeah.
it and bring it out to you.
It go
Yeah,
down
that's
the-
like we had a
conveyor
Best.
belt.
It was the same thing. Not Best
was-
Buy, but Best. Did you have a Best?
Yeah. Nope,
No, we
I
had
heard-
Service Merchandise here
it's
in
probably the same.
Virginia
Best was
and
like that.
Ohio.
Same thing.
As
You
I
got
recall.
a service ticket. You looked at something on
A
the
catalog.
wall. Yeah.
There's a catalog
Oh.
showroom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
had
yeah.
they had like a pad with pencils all over the place, and you
There's
so you
clipboard
would
They still
with,
have-
with the order sheet. And you
Yeah.
got to go to
There-
back in those days. You went to Silent Sam to place your order on your own.
silence.
They still have. They still do that in London, in England. They have Argos. It's still the same thing. So, it's.
I was the sight and sound manager
Oh,
a long time ago.
I worked at a Taco Bravo.
yeah.
I don't think it's the same thing. You know, their demo units was like the actual. It was the actual food. It's like, look, it's a taco. It's a burrito. All right, I don't know where I'm going
Anyway,
with
we're
that.
going off
we-
topic here.
We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we have 2 more stories and whatever else that Dave and Warren want to talk about. So everyone stand by. We'll be right back. La, 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 la. Come on. Oh, we didn't do it.
La, 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 la.
This is Private Eye Macintosh, and I'm here to tell you about a book written about me and my search for the Maltese Cube. Yes, it's a fine book. I think you should get it. Quiet, you. It combines technology, Mac trivia, action, murder, suspense. Oh, just tell them where to get it. I'll get to that. romance, film noir detective fiction. I can't stand it anymore. It's called The Maltese Cube, and it was written by my Mac writer and podcaster Guy Searle. Find it on Amazon. It's only $2.99 and coming soon to the Apple's iBook store. Don't forget, it's The Maltese Cube and so inexpensive. You know you're not in it, right? I mean the next one, right? Sure thing, Louis. You know, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship. Get The Maltese Cube on Amazon and soon in the iBook store.
And we are back. And of course, wow, boy, that is so annoying. I don't know what that is, Warren.
You still hear it?
I
don't
still
hear
hear it. It's like really loud.
I don't think it's me anymore because my thing's not doing much.
No, I can see it here. It's coming off your channel.
How about now? Is that better?
Nope, still there. You hear it too, David?
I hear it.
Okay, well, we'll have to deal with it.
By the way, it's the Apple Bookstore, not the iBooks is gone.
I know. Well, I wrote that a long time ago. I
right,
basically
just making
took an
sure.
old audio ad. Same thing I did with Ed's book,
Ed
Ed Eisen's book, which is called The Light Side, and you guys should get that. It's a really good book.
I did get it.
I basically took an audio ad that I did and then threw a bunch of graphics on top of it. So I put, let me think about how much work I put into that. Nothing. No work whatsoever. So it was, and I put in almost as much work in making that ad as I did in writing that book. Boy, there's an endorsement. All right. Yeah. We have a few more things here, and you can kind of file this under irony. This story kind of made me laugh. Is Google making life more difficult for browsers other than Chrome? This is a story from the Register. According to someone who worked on Microsoft's Edge browser until recently used Microsoft's own Edge HTML and is now switching to Google's Chromium engine, Google is deliberately adding elements to their web pages and services to slow down rival browsers, which is ironic since this is exactly what got Microsoft into so much trouble in regards to antitrust lawsuits back in the 90s. Now, whether or not this is true, Mozilla's Chris Beard had some interesting thoughts on the matter, and this is a direct quote. He says, Google is a fierce competitor with highly trained employees and a monopolistic hold on unique assets. Google's dominance across search, advertising, smartphones, and data capture creates a vastly tilted playing field that works against the rest of us. From a social, civic, and individual empowerment perspective, ceding control of fundamental online infrastructure to a single company is terrible. This is why Mozilla exists. We compete with Google not because it's a good business opportunity. We compete with Google because the health of the internet and online life depend on competition and choice. They depend on consumers being able to decide we want something better and to take action. Making Google more powerful is risky on many fronts, and a big part of the answer depends on what web developers and businesses who create services and websites do. If one product like Chromium has enough market share, then it becomes easier for web developers and businesses to decide not to worry if their services and sites work with anything other than Chromium. That's what happened when Microsoft had a monopoly on browsers in the early 2000s before Firefox was released, and it could happen again. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think Microsoft was smart in itself with Edge to go away from what they were doing and went to Chromium. I mean, it's just Microsoft's making some smart decisions in relation to a lot of their products, and I just don't see. I think it's smart. I don't think that Google's breaking Microsoft. That's crazy.
No, it's not a question of whether or not they're breaking Microsoft. It's that this is the browser that is the default on 80 to 90% of the computers in the world. And
You talking Chrome or are you talking
no, I'm talking about Edge.
Edge?
So if they're using the same engine for their browser that Chromium is, and they get away from their own standards, what's to prevent developers, websites, all the rest of that from basically just coding toward Chrome and ignoring
Yeah,
every other
exactly.
kind of browser
Nothing,
that's out
but-
there?
Nothing. But
They want to do that, and I
they
don't
wanna
think
do
there's
it.
any.
That-
There's no financial benefit. I don't think either.
no.
What,
Google
for
doesn't
Google?
make money. Yeah, I don't think Chromium makes money or Google makes money for that.
And you also
Well, I
gotta
think
remember-
it's part of. I think it's part of their core service as far as data gathering information. If you're able, you're a service that provides, you're a company that provides services in not only browsers, but with an open source Office environment, with all the different things that Google does, and all of these services are tied in for data acquisition of the individual people that are using these services, which in turn they are selling to other companies as advertising. It goes back to one of the earlier stories that we were talking about. And if Google is allowed to basically dictate where the web is going in the future, I can't see how that's good for anybody. This is what happened in the late 90s, early 2000s with Internet Explorer. Basically Microsoft claimed that they couldn't allow other browsers because it would screw up Windows 98 and then Windows ME and then whatever the next XP and all that. They said, well, Internet Explorer is just so tightly integrated with our operating system. Well, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
No,
They
it
were able.
was.
They were able to release a version of all of these operating systems without having the tight integration to Internet Explorer, and it worked just fine.
Well, you also got to remember, you said Edge is on 80% of machines. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it's being used. I mean, Edge is that Microsoft's market share with Edge is very low. You have Mozilla, you have Firefox, and you have Chrome. Those are the two biggies. Edge is right behind them there, and that was really what Microsoft decided to do. They said, you know what, let's go. We want to go with Chromium because it's going to be easier to develop. They'll take it away from the operating system, so it's not going to be integrated because Edge is integrated. You also got to remember there are still a lot of enterprise still using Internet Explorer, and they have to work on that too, getting away from that. It's an unfortunate thing. Internet Explorer is still on Windows 10, but it's Edge is going to Edge. I think it was a smart move on their part. They're also going to make it available for Mac. I mean, giving them another opportunity in that platform. So Microsoft's doing a good job of recognizing that you got to recognize all platforms. I mean,
This isn't about Microsoft making Edge available. It's about Microsoft switching to the Chromium engine
and I think
for their browser.
Let me ask you this, both of you: if Firefox, Safari, and all the other browsers out there said, "We're not doing this anymore because Chrome wins or Chromium wins," what's the impact? What's the issue?
That allows Google to set the standards for browsers and by extension probably large parts of the internet.
How?
Well, because they're the ones that will be able to determine, well, what kind of videos are we going to allow? What kind of audio are we going to allow? What web standards are we going to allow, or are we going to incorporate within our browser? They get to determine that.
Why would they limit that, and why would they?
Yeah.
What would
because it would be.
reasoning?
It's like ABC doesn't advertise, or ABC doesn't allow advertising to CBS programs on their network because it's not their stuff.
It's competition.
It's exactly so. If
But we're not in a-
Google
we're not in a
Google
browser-
has
But not in browsers. I know.
We're not in a browser war anymore. The original browser war was over.
90s.
Actually, and developers are would rather have one standard browser. To be honest with you, they
No,
hate.
because it's yeah. Think about all the
It's a mess.
other browsers that we aren't even talking about, like Opera and others. You know, they're just kind of secondary browsers that are out there.
But it's not
I
about
don't-
the,
I
it's
don't
not
see it
about
being
the
monopoly.
browser. It's about the engine that powers the
engine,
browser.
yeah, no, and Chromium, and the thing is,
a
Google's
framework, yeah.
allowing it to be open source, so it can be developed in any way they so choose. I mean,
I mean, anybody
Okay,
can come
well,
up with
we're
their
gonna
own
have to
framework.
agree to disagree because I think that having a single browser that has 80+% of the market, and that you have one company that's able to determine what the standards for that browser is going to be, is just a bad idea. I don't agree with that at all, and I think that eventually. And Google has already run into some problems in this area as far as having a monopoly in certain regards, and this is something that I think is going to come back and bite them on the ass. But okay, we will agree to disagree.
But they're not even. Google's not even pushing it. It's not like anybody. I don't think
They don't
telling
have to.
Microsoft to do.
Well, I mean, if you look at if what this guy here is saying is true, Google, which also owns YouTube and a few other content sharing sites, they add a certain piece into those sites that only works well with Chrome. And if you have a browser that works with Edge, HTML, or WebKit, or something that's not Chromium, it slows the browser down. And if that's true, that's monopolistic behavior. That's taking your position of power and making it so that others can't compete.
Companies and developers are going to gravitate towards what's the best. If Mozilla came out next week and invented something on their browser that made it super fast, super easy to program, best in every way, then people will gravitate towards that. And
I think people gravitate towards free, and
yeah.
this
they're all
is what
free.
happened. This
browsers
is
are
what,
free.
but this is what happened with Netflix. You had Netflix was the browser that you had to pay for, and it was arguably better than Internet
Netscape,
Explorer.
maybe?
You mean
Yeah,
Netscape?
Netscape. What did I say?
Netflix?
Netflix.
You said Netflix.
Oh,
I'm like,
I meant
what?
Netscape. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Well, they got bought.
And then in turn, Microsoft comes out with Internet Explorer, and it's free. Well, it was determined people just didn't care that Netscape had a better browser because they didn't have to pay for Internet Explorer, and it was included in the operating system. This is abuse of a monopolistic position of a company that's in the driving seat for some standard. And I just think that eventually we all end up paying for something like this.
But that's a whole different situation. I mean, that was basically.
Well, that's what
they
this
gave
story
away
is
something.
about.
No, Netscape was charging what Microsoft gave for free. Apple does it all. I mean, Apple's doing it all the time. Apple offers plenty of software on the base Mac that you buy at a store that you could pay for things, and everybody's doing it now. But that was the issue back then. Is they offered something for free that people were paying for prior with Netscape. That's not the case anymore. It's not about money anymore.
Oh, it's always about money. All of these services cost money to develop, and they expect a certain amount of return on their investment. And whether it's directly from selling the product, or whether it's from some kind of not third party, or some other way of creating revenue based on people using these products. I mean, eventually it always comes back to money.
The only thing that could be money related with the browsers at this point would be Apple pushing Safari so people buy Macs, and Chrome pushing, Google pushing Chrome so they could sell Chromebooks. Firefox doesn't. The rest of them don't have a monetary reason. I don't even think it's open source. I don't even know how they would make money off it. To be honest with you, how does Mozilla make money?
I don't know. We're going to have to agree to disagree. I think that this is a terrible idea, and eventually this is going to come back and bite us on the ass. All right, but speaking
About
of
anything else?
A big bite.
this is something that became a thing on the Mac to the Future site. Somebody asked about it, and there were some comments made. I actually hadn't paid much attention to this, but essentially, from looking at it earlier today, it's not just that Apple Music went live on Amazon's Echo speakers. There's also an online component now to your iTunes account. So you can basically go into a browser, sign in to your iCloud account, and listen to all of your music through Apple Music. And whether it's in your library or it's part of Apple Music's library.
That's an API. I mean, that's Apple opened up an API because they did it with Amazon, and that API allowed somebody to create this website basically that will tie into your Apple account and get your music.
Yeah, I mean, it's not harming anything.
It's not sponsored by anybody. It's just some guy who wrote.
No,
that
I'm
website.
just saying it's awesome. I tried
Yeah, no,
today,
it's
and I
great.
really liked it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I tried it too.
I mean,
it's
just
kind of
like the integration. I mean, I talked about this on my podcast about the Amazon Echo's integration in itself. I mean, this is a win-win. I mean, I can't see it. I'm blown away at the love that Amazon and Apple have for each other lately, just for all the things they've been doing lately. So, but it's amazing. You ask her to play music, and you can set it as your default music player now. I mean,
It works great.
it works great.
Going.
Yeah.
So the big question is it gonna cut into HomePod sales? You think? If it was Christmas now, or if somebody was out there saying, "Well, I want Apple Music, and I could either buy a HomePod or an Amazon product," what are they going to buy?
Well, they also have to depend on what the sound. I mean, depending on the Amazon device they get. I mean, the HomePod. I mean, I have two HomePods now, and the sound is just incredible. I mean, you pair them and it works great. I mean, I have Amazon Echo devices in my house too, but the sound quality it doesn't compare. I mean, it's just really it's going to be dependent. I think a lot of the consumer will want something like the Amazon Echo or the Amazon
Because they're cheap.
The dot, especially the dot's $30 or $40.
Dots,
I mean,
but-
you just
but
want a
they're-
simple, but now you can play your music and people who have those don't care what it sounds.
You could connect your dot to a $2,000 hi-fi system if you want.
Right.
And get
And
good
that's the
sound.
thing. with
You would
these
be
devices,
insane
yeah.
to do so, but you could.
Believe me, I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure people
Oh.
are doing that.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's an online interface to a high-end speaker.
Right. But I think Apple kind of waved a little bit of a white flag saying this is going to be good to sell Apple Music.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why
Just
we're
like,
doing it.
and just
Well,
like
they're
what-
certainly
like
going to
Don-
make more money off of a service like Apple Music than they'll ever make off the HomePods.
Right. Well, that's why they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, just like when they offered it on the Android. I mean, they didn't have an Android for a long time, and now they have
Well-
all those customers too.
Based on this, do you think that the HomePod is long for this world, or you think Apple will just stop making it?
No,
Or they'll just open up their API for Sonos and every other device that's out there and say,
I wouldn't bet-
mea culpa. Why bother to make the HomePod if it's not
I wouldn't-
offering anything beyond other than a quality of sound that most people don't seem to want to pay for?
Yeah.
And just let them buy Echo Dots and let them buy Sonos speakers and let them buy whatever else it is that they want to buy to
No,
listen to
no.
music on.
Sonos
They'll
speakers
make-
are
they'll
more
make their-
expensive than-
They'll make their $10 to $15 a month through Apple Music.
I mean, Sonos speakers are
I
more
would-
expensive than HomePod, so
I wouldn't be shocked if the HomePod was not a long-term product. I wouldn't be shocked if it went
'Cause
away
they-
in a year
yeah.
or two. That it wouldn't shock me.
Well, they certainly don't. They don't need it for integrating. Oh, damn it! Their smart devices, because that's all done through
HomeKit.
the Apple. HomeKit, because that's all done through the Apple
HomeKit.
TV.
well HomePod is
or the
in
HomePod. The HomePod.
Yeah,
is
but-
part of
HomeKit.
Most people are going to find more use from. I think most people would find more use from an Apple TV than they would a HomePod.
Depends on what you want.
Yeah.
Some
Say.
people don't. I think I use my HomePod more than I use my Apple TV.
Well,
would say that
I
too.
well, I don't have any HomePods, so unless somebody's willing to buy one for me,
they were
I
dirt cheap.
guess I just won't know. Marcus
$2.50 now.
Benjamin wants to call in and leave a confusing message. Well,
No.
Marcus, you can
Go for it.
867-5309. No, that's not the number that you would call, Marcus.
Damn it, Jenny.
We have there is a Skype number that you can call, 703-436-9501. God, I should know that after 8+ years. And if you specify that you have a call in for the Mac to the Future show, I can certainly make it so that we can play it here on the show. I would eventually like to try a live call-in segment for the show again, but honestly, it really didn't work that well when we tried that,
I
a
think we
year
need
and a
to
half
do
ago.
Sex chat.
But
That'll
if
work.
people would like to comment on the show, other than in Facebook Live, you can certainly call the Skype number, and we will play those messages here on Wednesday nights here in the Mac to the Future show. And again, remember that just because that this show is going out live on Wednesday nights doesn't mean you can't also watch it. I once I finish editing it and get rid of all the beginning crap and all the end crap, then it's basically just the show that's on YouTube. I converted over to audio, and it's in the Guys Daily Drive feed over there in iTunes, where you can also listen to the ever decreasing number of Guys Daily Drives that I've been recording lately. And the thing that's killing me with Guys Daily Drive is that in the morning, I basically have two times when I can record Guys Daily Drive. It's in the morning when I'm going to work and the sun is like glaring in through the window on the east side, or when I'm going home from work and it's so dark at 5 o'clock that you can't even see inside the car. So I'm kind of screwed on both ends of the spectrum for recording Guys Daily Drive, which is the big reason why I haven't done that many. I did record one this morning, and I will be editing that and getting that out very, very soon. But yeah, so there's all kinds of different things that I'm doing besides the Mac to the Future Go live cast that I do with David and Warren. I also do the MyMac.com podcast with Mr. Gazmaz. We just recorded. I didn't realize it when we were recording it. Last week was show 735. That was our 450th show since Gaz and I took over the MyMac.com podcast. So 785 will be 500 shows if we somehow manage to make it that far. But that'll be sometime next year. We'll hit 500 shows, probably like November, December of next year. So that's something to look forward to. Let's see. I don't even know where I was going with all this, but I managed to turn it into a segue of something weird. The
I forgot
Warren,
what we were talking about.
we were talking about all kinds of stuff, and then I went off on a tangent. Warren can be reached via Facebook
Yep.
because he doesn't want to give out any other information because he's smart.
I give it all to Facebook.
David, how can people get a hold of you on the webs? Through Chromium
Webs,
browsers.
they got my podcast, intouchwithios.com. You got
Yep.
you got your Twitters at DaveG65. I got my other podcast, Off the Charts HorseRacing.com. And you can also go to my my Apple user group I'm the president of at myscau.org. Those are places I'm at.
Yeah, the Suburban Chicago Apple User Group.
That's it.
I know there was a user group around here, the Washington Apple Pie. I do not know if they're still around.
Probably not.
I don't know. The membership was getting a little ancient. The last time I had anything to do.
I think our membership isn't.
Well, there was my brother, and I'm not going to mention his name. He used to belong to a mug down in Florida. And not him, but somebody else that was associated with it, called it God's waiting room. So,
I
yeah,
went to one I went to one of these once, and it was the last time I'll do that. So yeah.
I actually
Not so
enjoyed it. The couple of I was active with the Washington Apple Pie for a number of years, and I really did enjoy it. I had a really really good time. They had some great people. The problem is that the membership just kept shrinking. You know, you had
Yeah, it is.
you had people that would come all the time, and those were the only faces that you would see. And without new blood, organizations like that just can't exist. They just can't keep going.
It's been a challenge.
Yeah.
The great thing is we have an amazing facility we have it at. We're at the American Society of Anesthesiologists, which actually,
Well, of course you are. So you walk into
It
the
would-
room, you're like, "Whoa, dude, cool."
which I think they have a headquarters in Washington D.C. too. So, but they have their headquarters is in Chicago area, and we're very blessed. I mean, 150 seat auditorium,
Right.
all automatic.
Almost sounds like the
great
Mac
stuff.
Stock Auditorium. Is it a little bit
Oh,
smaller than that?
It's
Or is it a little
probably
bit
about
bigger?
about
the same size?
maybe a little. Yeah, because it's probably about the same. But the technology is a lot more up to date. It's a newer building.
Okay.
And cheater screens and the projectors and the Crestron touch screens and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
you know, I mean, this is coming from the group being at a hotel for all these years and having to spend all this freaking time having to set things up every month.
Every single time.
Our speakers, our projectors, having projectors that are 50 years old. You know, you know how it goes.
Well, we should also mention that we are only 7 months away from the next MacStock Conference and Expo, which will be held in Woodstock, Illinois, in sometime in July. I think he's announced the date. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's going to be a good time.
28th.
27th, 28th of July. If you would like to get a hold of me and say, Guy, why are you talking about an event that is 7 months away? That would be, I almost said Guy at mttfgo.com, but that website is going away. Just contact me, Guy at mymac.com for now. I've kind of moved all of my stuff online. I'm closing down all of my various websites, and it's all going to be on a single website now, vertshark.com, VERTSHARK.com, and I need to come up with some kind of clever kind of email address that I can use with vertshark.com. I am also Mac Parrot
need
on the
guys to,
Twitters. Huh?
You'll need guys to come up with a new sound when you say your
Yeah.
talk. It
Mm.
won't be a parrot anymore.
Vertshark.com.
Vertshark.
Vertshark.com.
Shark.
Ah.
Shark.
So we have a Skype number, Warren, or I should say Marcus. It's 703-436-9501 if you'd like to leave a comment for the show. Just put something in the comment that lets me know that it's for
Let's call it
Mac
now,
to the
703.
Future versus
703.
yeah, 703. No, don't call it now because then all of my stuff here will start ringing. Don't. Why am I saying this while the show is going out live?
Marcus could be calling right now. You don't know.
This
all
is
he
just
is.
such a bad idea. And so I've got about 10 seconds before all of my crap starts ringing. Why am I
It's
doing
like
this to myself? I will
When they
have
get a
to.
FaceTime, when we're Apple people, you get a FaceTime call in your house, and the whole house lights up like
Yeah.
a Christmas tree, and you're like, "I'm here."
All right.
It's,
Well, that is going to about do it for the show tonight. Thank you all so very, very much for joining us this evening. We really, really do appreciate it. Thank you, David, for being on. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Warren, for being on. I
Thank you.
appreciate the fact that you both. And there they go. Yep, it's now
It's
ringing.
coming. Yeah,
Someone
there
is
you go.
calling.
It's not me.
Skype audio.
Could have
Yeah.
told you.
Yeah, and I bet it's Marcus. Actually, I shouldn't have put that up there because people could now see Marcus's number.
Probably should edit that.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think next week will be a little tough for me. By the way, because.
Well, let's see. Next
Christmas and
week
stuff.
is
Next
the
week's
day
just
after
after
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We may not. Well, and the thing is, the week after that is New Year's.
New Year's.
So I don't know what the schedule is going to be like for the next 2 weeks. I don't know if David or Warren is going to be. Sorry. I don't know if they're going to be available. I don't know if I'm going to be available.
Right.
You know, I got to
Family
have an
stuff.
elephant in my refrigerator. Say the secret word, win $100. So that is going to do it for this evening. Say goodnight, David.
Good night, David.
Say goodnight, Warren.
Good night, David.
Oh, that's just cheating. That's just
Good night,
wrong.
Alexis. Good night,
Good night,
Alexis.
everybody.
Alexis.